Hey guys, I hope that you had a good Valentine's Day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all again on Thursday. So, as we jump into this week, I wanted to remind you that our topic that we have is how we handle our hurt. And as I was thinking about this topic, the first story that came to my mind was the story of Joseph and his brothers. If you remember some of the story, and you can go read it, so it's in Genesis chapter 37, specifically the verses 12 through 36. Try to keep it somewhat short. And that's very specifically the moment when Joseph got sold into slavery by his brothers. Um, it's hard because I don't want to be like overly dramatic, but I know that many of us have dealt with um, pain when it comes to family in big and small senses. And this is obviously a really big situation. But as you go through and read this, it's fairly short, like I said. I was thinking of just this one question. So, if you were in Joseph's shoes, how do you think you would react? More specifically, how would you handle the situation? I tend to like to take scripture and especially the stories from the Old Testament and not just imagine what it was like for them, but what I would do if I was in their situation. As we're talking about dealing with hurt, I wanted to kind of just have us start thinking about how do we handle it, both in good ways and bad ways. So we'll focus probably on the good, and if we get to the point of sharing some bad, we'll probably do that as well. So the second question that we have is, can you think of a time that you might have been hurt by someone in your life, and how you handle it in a good way? So kind of like, what are the things that you do, be it before, if you know that something's coming up, or during, especially if we get caught off guard, that help you handle situations in a better way. I know that for me, connecting to God and listening to God when I'm not doing well, or when I'm angry or upset about something, is really hard. And there have been some things that I've learned actually in the past recent years that have really helped me with that. So I plan on sharing that with you guys in person. The other scripture that we had was actually inspired by Pastor Steve, and he was sharing with me that he was reminded of just David and dealing with Saul, and specifically how David reacts in the Psalms. So I was looking at Psalms chapter 18, verses 1 through 19 specifically. It relates to a time when David was crying out to God about his situation with Saul. So take a look at that if you have a chance, if you don't already know about the story of David and Saul. But as you read it, think about this. Has there ever been a time in your life where you've cried out to God? And I know it might sound a little silly, but I was thinking about, did it sound at all like David did when he called out to God, when he cried out to God? And even if not, I know that sometimes the Psalms really hit home, and I hope it does. But at the same time, if not, if your cries out to God have been a little bit maybe more like mine, of at times whimpering and bawling my eyes out, or yelling and screaming, definitely not at all in my mind like David's. But I can definitely relate to different aspects of what David says, and definitely it encourages me in how I cry out to God. But we can get more into that on Thursday. So as you look at this, have you ever cried out to God? Did it sound like David? If not, or if it did, was there anything in the way that David cried out to God that really resonated with you? So I hope those make sense. I'll have those questions for us on Thursday. I hope this is some extra time ahead of time to give you to think about it and to go check out those scriptures. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday night.